We just recorded our call with Yvonne. Um, this is cool. I like obviously like a new company, but it's cool to see new companies like this in taking utilizing AI and bringing it into the mainstream.
Absolutely. Obviously, near and dear to our heart from a fund admin point of view, kind of the audience she initially is focusing on, and really in a secure manner. I know there's fear out there about using AI, but to support a team, not replace someone's job, to scale the team, and that's been always been a problem in fund admin, right? Spreadsheet heavy, always always bandwidth issues on once you get a new client, then you have to, you know, get more folks on your team. So definitely solving a lot of problems with reconciliation that she mentioned. So a lot of excitement there, and someone that is actually focused on our industry of finance, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the operational stuff's like pretty low hanging fruit. So
Totally.
it'll be cool to see just how it evolves over time.
Yeah.
Um, she
Yeah.
also
Even the
mentioned
sales too.
yeah, some things about sales that can be automated. DDQ Rex, which are obviously great for fund admin, but a lot of other folks in the industry need to deal with that stuff as well.
Absolutely. Totally agree.
Cool. Well, on to our conversation with Yvonne.
Welcome to the Alt Funds Podcast. I'm Skyler Steinke. I'm here with my co-host, Mike Schroeder. And today we have the pleasure of having Yvonne Newlands with Trekka.ai. Yvonne is co-founder and managing partner at Trekka, where she guides asset managers and fund service providers through AI transformation. With 15 plus years of Big Four consulting experience and hands-on AI implementation, she also helps asset management organizations unlock both efficiency and growth in the AI space. Welcome, Yvonne.
Thank you. Thanks for having
Thanks
me.
for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Well, great. Why don't we just kick it off, Yvonne? Maybe just talk about your background and kind of how you got into the game here of AI.
Yeah, absolutely. So I spent 15 plus years leading complex transformations for Fortune 500 companies. And a couple years ago, I sort of jumped into the startup world when I started building agentic workflows and for my customers, and also got into the asset management industry as well, and really learn about the industry kind of pain points, very nuanced processes, and all that. And a couple months ago, I sort of had my aha moment, and I realized a lot of companies still kind of resistant and to go move forward with AI. It's not just about technology, it's more than that. So that's why I decided to combine my knowledge and experience from both worlds, the consulting world and also the tech world, to help companies in the asset management industry become AI first organizations.
Awesome. That's great. Fantastic. Let's kind of maybe get into kind of the start of that process. Obviously, you have a great background in consulting. You mentioned you've gotten to asset management. What was kind of the shift for you, going from kind of what you used to do, and then obviously getting into this new paradigm of AI workflows and all the things we talk about?
Yeah, I think one thing is really kind of fun, sort of catches me off guard a little bit was the sort of the whole asset management industry. It's not that because they're cautious about implementing AI, because I've worked in highly regulated industries before, so I expected that. I think what surprises me a little bit was kind of where the hesitation comes from. I think most people think it's kind of technology or the risk, but in our conversations with the asset management organizations, it's actually something more human. I think people are just exhausted. They're being promised transformations by different vendors for the past decade. For example, they're still using CRMs that didn't integrate well. They're using fancy platforms that actually created more work than they saved. So when we show up talking about AI, I can sense there's kind of understandable fatigue. They're thinking, here we go again. So I totally get it. In my consulting days at Accenture and EY, I saw this pattern across industries. Companies, they burned by technology that didn't deliver. So what I'm learning here in the asset management sort of industry specifically, and also our team's 25 plus years of experience, has been kind of teaching me this is that the workflows we're talking about here, the specific to asset managed industries, are incredibly nuanced. So there's a lot of institutional knowledge embedded in processes that outsiders look at probably simple, but are actually kind of protecting against a lot of kind of edge cases. So I think the sort of early journey when the hesitation is really not about being sort of behind or resistant to change. It's about being kind of thoughtful stewards of critical operations. So I think it's actually a strength, not a weakness. It just means we need to kind of really earn the trust differently through quick wins and gain respect, um, and really respect people's expertise. So not kind of making big promises that ignore reality.
So, Yvonne, talk to us about kind of some of the first areas that you want to start for this. So, you guys are a new company, you're just coming to the market. Talk to us about like, where do you see the first opportunities at for your company?
Yeah, the first, a couple things. I think one is just raising awareness of AI exists beyond just ChatGPT. So through training, through workshops, even just go to conferences and talking to people about AI and just applications. So that's one sort of avenue. The other one is just talking to people in the industry and asking them some of their kind of the pain points they're experiencing today. And typically we'll look out for key patterns, so repetitive, manual, and also just simple automation, AI automation opportunities, and people are willing to try out first because we're not shooting for complex, super custom build workflows yet, because we want to start with quick wins. So we typically do even just a quick discovery call, or we call it AI audit to kind of do a kind of quick scan of their existing. We can pick a functional area and do a quick scan of their kind of existing processes and workflows and understand where the kind of the pain points are that we can use AI, leverage AI to fix some of the problems.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess to add to that, I guess as a question, Yvonne, that it always comes up. Where does someone start, right? To that point. So are they starting with the assessment? I mean, what do you, if you can give us a little thought process, kind of breakdown on where that kind of starts from a conversation point of view to, where do they look at? What's the conversation on the front end when AI gets brought up? Because to your point earlier, obviously there's fear, there's overwhelm. It's like we've seen
Mm-hmm.
this before. Where you're in a very highly regulated industry as well.
Mm-hmm.
How are those conversations coming along?
Yeah, it really depends on where the companies are in terms of their AI journey. Some of them are just still very new to the whole AI space, and I really wanted to kind of get started with a bit more just education and not just educating their leadership suite, but also people, practitioners, and people within the organizations learn more about AI, learn more about the art of the possibility, so to speak. So that's kind of the education space. And also, I think some of the companies, if they're a little bit kind of more mature in terms of their understanding of AI, they would come with a list of use cases they're hoping to solve using AI, and that's always a great starting point. We can take a look at the use cases, and again, kind of based on some of the criteria we have, some of the kind of patterns we see, and we would help them prioritize these use cases and see what makes sense to tackle first, right? Achieve things kind of quickly and gain trust within the organization, and then kind of go from there and build out more of a roadmap and implement more use cases along the way. And also some of the an organization could be just starting out by asking a lot of questions: how they run their business today, what's their what is their kind of what are their kind of common workflows, or what are some of the bottlenecks they're seeing, and what some of their sort of a data issues and their tech stack as well, to really kind of understand the holistically how they run their business, and really kind of looking at things through, I would say, three lenses: the people, process, technology, and really kind of thinking through how AI could potentially come in and help solve some of the problems.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's great. I guess with that, you're talking about different companies. I know obviously one of the companies, the types of companies you focused on initially are fund administrators, which is Mike and I's background by trade originally. So that's great news. What are some of the specific use cases in fund administration that you see are most promising from an AI lens?
We've been working with fund admins. We see opportunities both across sort of the growth areas and the efficiency areas as well. So, kind of specifically, if we look at more kind of enabling growth, one use case sort of come to mind is the DDQ and RFP responses. And this actually comes up quite constantly, because if you think about fund admins, but also asset managers, they tell us they're answering the same questions repeatedly, right, during the
Hmm.
DDQ
Right.
process. So, questions about their processes, their compliance procedures, or their operational controls, usually different formats, but typically just the same type of question. So, using AI can draft the initial responses by pulling from your previous answers, right, and also latest updates, any kind of regulatory filings, and other kind of internal documentation. So humans will still kind of review and customize the answers, but they're editing instead of writing from scratch. So that's one use case. The other ones, quite interestingly, is sort of personalized investor outreach, and this is for fund managers, asset managers. So this one's quite interesting. Is asset managers, they need to communicate with different investors differently, because some probably want more kind of deep analytics, others want more kind of high level summaries, and some care about just returns, and some care about ESG metrics, for example. So AI can tailor communications based on investor preferences and history. So AI can draft personalized updates, and of course the relationship manager typically adds sort of the human touch and also insights that kind of maintain the relationship. And the third use case, quite often, is just talk about kind of position reconciliation work. So um, the we're actually working with a fund admin client right now, and essentially this a workflow is comparing data sets from their accounting system against the broker statements to identify mismatches. And the team was using spreadsheets and VLOOKUP to match positions. So it's very time consuming and error prone.
Hmm.
And so we use AI to, first kind of compare the two data sets and present them in a clean, easy to navigate format, and send the team a daily exception report. And it only took a few days to build in line with the team. So you can immediately get time savings, like fast. And once sort of that was built, we also expanded. We got the AI agents now to troubleshoot variances by checking external financial data sources, then return sort of initial root cause analysis and the work that was entirely done by human before. So that's also a pretty key use case, and specifically for fund admins. And the fourth one is document intelligence for investor relations. Um, so this surprised me here is how much actually time goes into synthesizing information from documents for investors. So, performance reports, portfolio updates, quarterly letters. So AI can extract key data points, identify trends, and draft summaries. And you have the portfolio manager as sort of additional context and judgment, but the initial heavy lifting is automated.
Yeah, very cool. A couple things there I want to double click on. I think the investor reporting is interesting. Relationship for a fund manager, I could see a use case there. I mean, even, I use like, I guess to some degree, like AI, I'm a salesperson, so I'm reaching out with like cold email. It works there sometimes. It's definitely a little like trickier, but I mean, I think some of the lower hanging fruit is like the DDQ and the position recs that you brought up. Walk us through the DDQ. So I guess the first question would be like kind of how do you feed the agent this information? So like you said, you're probably going back and forth with a lot of different like we're talking about a fund admin, so they're probably going back and forth with a lot of different like fund managers providing their DDQ. How do you get kind of all that in one place, and how do they go about cleaning it up and sending it out to the funds that they're working with?
Yeah, so we typically just we will start with sort of a knowledge base. So you have documents sent by the fund managers, and could be the previous DDQ responses, and could be sort of existing any kind of internal documentation, and also updates from kind of the last DDQ response as well, and also answers from the previous DDQ um, responses. So the first is to kind of build that a knowledge base, and the good thing about the knowledge base is you can constantly update the knowledge base, right? It's always your latest, greatest information stored in that place, and that's kind of the foundation of what the agent will learn from. And also you need to give the AI agents very specific instructions about how to read from the knowledge base, and also how to answer question. And again, based on a lot of the questions you answered previously during the kind of DDQ process, so you kind of learn how to do it um, organically, and also kind of you can sort of include additional instructions, and you can include additional instructions because your company is involving, your firm is involving in as well. You have more, for example, you're making more investments, you increase your kind of portfolio structures, right? So your firm is involving as well. So you also kind of feed the knowledge base the latest updates as well.
Hmm. And then on the position rep work, walk us through some of this, because this is also something I think is it's low hanging fruit. It's very practical. It's one of those jobs that I don't think anybody really likes to do. So it's,
Mhm.
kind of one of those things perfect for AI to take over.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look at a kind of position recs, essentially a lot of these are just comparing data into spreadsheets, and you use VLOOKUP and other Excel functions to um, to compare the data. So AI, and is in a way they can quickly identify a lot of the mismatches between the two data sets, right? Because you set the parameters, and also the agent can learn based on some of the rules you set, and also they can adapt it as well. And so it's pretty easy to kind of get to that list of mismatches, and you can kind of categorize them into different buckets. If it's fully matched, then human doesn't need to review it at all. If there's mismatches, that would also trigger the AI agents to do additional the root cause analysis. And the beauty of it is, today, humans have to log into, for example, Bloomberg Terminal and other platforms to get the data, right? If there's like a corporate action, there's a stock split, event which causes the price break or the quantity break, the human needs to go into the system and find out why. And this can be done by the AI agents because you can just go, you can do it via API integration. So the AI agents can get the financial data, through um, external data source, and then come back with the value you're looking for, and do the calculation for you and come up with sort of initial analysis, say, hey, this break is because of this particular corporate event, so it's not a true break, and move on. And once that's done, AI will generate a full report, sort of a really specifying which ones are true breaks that humans need to review, and if there are no breaks at all, that's great news. So you don't need to even spend time opening up the spreadsheet. So
Yeah, that's great. And obviously, there's an exception process, and there's still a human in the loop at the end. I'm assuming to go through that process, which is great. But
right.
that saves them, I'm sure. Back in the day, the time frame of going through that back and forth from an accounting person's day or end of the month. Now it's done. I'm assuming you're doing it. You said daily throughout the month, and at
Hmm.
the end of the month, it's just a clean nav process.
Hmm.
That's great. Um, let's talk about, obviously there's a lot of things you can do. You mentioned some great use cases. Obviously there's fear out there of like, what if AI makes a mistake, right? And what if the algorithm or
Hmm.
LLM goes through and makes a mistake on the process? So how do you answer that for folks who have that concern?
Right. Yeah. So I think this is actually a great question that you asked. So I've implemented AI in other highly regulated environments. So this is kind of how we address it. Um, One is you never deploy AI in sort of just set it and forget it mode, right? So for every kind of AI implementation, what we design, has three layers. Layer one is human in the loop control. For example, AI flags reconciliation exceptions, but then you have the operations team confirms each one before any changes, right? And the layer two is you have the audit trails and explainability. So meaning every AI decision is logged with reasoning. So if something goes wrong, you can always trace exactly what the AI saw and why it made that recommendation. So I think regulators love this because it's often better documentation than just kind of pure human processes. One example I have is AI flagged this um, position and holding because the quantity differs by more than 2% between the broker and admin reports, so clearly documented. And layer three is I call it graduated trust. So I always recommend starting with AI handling only low risk tasks, not mission critical tasks,
Yeah.
right? And you measure accuracy over time, typically over weeks, not days. And then you expand the scope only after reliability is proven. So, and never move to kind of higher risk tasks without kind of having the data backing it up.
Yeah.
So here's kind of how I see it sort of in practice. So you don't start just day one with AI making all the final decisions. You start with AI doing sort of initial comparison, flagging potential issues, and then humans reviewing everything. But over time, as the team builds confidence and you have data on accuracy, you adjust the level of human review, but you never remove oversight completely
Yeah.
on critical processes. So, yeah, so I think So the question isn't what if AI makes a mistake. It's more how do we design systems where AI makes mistakes are AI mistakes are caught before they cause problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's definitely a good thought process because I know everybody thinks, well, you just deploy this and it does it. It could take your job. It does all the work for you. You still have the human in the loop process. You still have guardrails around what you're doing. And over time, you're kind of taking a look at everything, but it just speeds up your day to day operational workflow. I guess in this case, it's operations to get things done, which is great. That's awesome. Um, I guess maybe stepping a little bit, I know kind of from what you started here at Trekka as an AI consulting company, but you do more than that. You actually yourself have built workflows. So maybe talk about what your experience has been, maybe at a high level. You don't have to mention any names, but just as the process, as you get into you talked about like where do you start? You have that conversation. You start to build workflows. How is that? How does adoption look like? And I always hate to use the word adoption because it's heavily used in our industry. But what do you see in real time from your experience?
Yeah. So my experience has been spending 80% of my time really understanding the process, the workflows I'm building. And so basically 80% of the time understanding what to build, and 20% of my time actually building the workflows, because there are a lot of great tools exist today, no code platforms. I can build the workflows on those platforms, but the sort of initial planning stage, really understanding the process flow, and not just from a manager's kind of point of view, but actual practitioner's point of view, how this process actually works today, um, sort of step by step. And so I typically use tools such as Mural to really sketch out the process flow, and also thinking about input output, the data flow as well, and what existing kind of the systems they're using, and also any sort of the nuances in terms of how people make decisions around these processes, right? If we're thinking about kind of reconciliation process, these are a lot of different exceptions, so a lot of different sort of branches, right? If this happens, then what? So you need to really build this pretty kind of complex, process flow, sort of a current state process flow, so you really know, what are you doing, and when it thinking about kind of how AI can automate that process, and typically I would start small, like this particular reconciliation process. The first step was not to kind of automate everything, to automate, end to end, all the way through. It's really think about, okay, so the first step is just comparing two data sets. And once that's done, and you show the results, and that's how you can gain trust very easily within the organization. Then we add more to that scope, and so from there we add one more step, which is emailing the results to the team automatically every day. So that's one step, and then based on our understanding of how the team handles exceptions, review every day, let's build out the additional workflows that automate that that step. So my approach is, don't try to kind of just go with the most complex process. Let's start small, even just seemingly kind of big complex process. Let's start with just simple achievable step, and kind of build from there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. You mentioned this. We talked about this obviously offline in the past, but it was kind of interesting comment I thought I'd bring up now is as you've gone through that, we've talked about this kind of just going through those workflows and processes. Invariably, you mentioned you find like the steps you can kind of condense those with AI because maybe the human process was inefficient and it took 6 steps. Well, now you can do it in 3, as an example. Do you want to comment on that a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah, because that's kind of how I sort of come in with my kind of consulting sort of point of view, because we don't just transform things that is already broken, right? If the process doesn't really quite work today, we first think about how we fix the process first before we optimize that. So like you said, if we're like 6 steps, but if we look at it, we actually can combine some of the steps, or we can kind of um, optimize in a certain way, maybe look at the data input, maybe look at kind of how we connect to the output, and consolidate some of the steps. We'll definitely do that before we put AI to work. Because when we're using AI to automate, we want to make sure we're automating a process that is already lean and optimized.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely a lot of opportunity there. What makes a good candidate for a firm that needs to kind of use AI? It could be a lot of things, I'm sure, but um, what do you look for on this on the front end? Obviously, you're looking to solve a business problem from an impact point of view,
Mhm.
but I'd love to hear your thoughts there.
Yeah, so a good candidate would be is executive buy-in. So the executive team, the leadership team wanted to transform their organizations into AI first organizations. And they're willing to put in resources and time and resources to make it happen. Because this is, again, it's a transformation. It's not kind of overnight sort of change you're making. So organizationally need to be ready for that. And you need um, a visionary leader and also the leadership team as well to empower and enable people to adopt AI. So I think without the executive buy-in, it will be very hard for organizations to actually move forward with AI, because you have people doing AI experiments outside of their working hours, but there's only so much time they can put in to explore AI. So if we want to move AI from pilots to productions, the organization needs to set the right vision, right strategy to make it happen. But again, doesn't have to be doesn't have to be starting with a 3-year roadmap. It can start as 2-week pilot and
Hmm.
just discovering and together with one use case and see how that goes. But the leadership team needs to be 100%
Yeah,
there to support this.
that makes sense.
Cool. Well, Yvonne, this has been a lot of fun. Where could people go to connect with you and learn more about Trekka.ai?
Yeah, they can send me an email, Yvonne.Trekka.ai. And yeah, so always happy to connect with people and learn about what they do and how AI can help solve some of their problems.
Well, this has been great, Yvonne, and we'll make sure to include all your contact details in the show notes. This has been a fun conversation.